Picture the last party you were quietly done with by 9. You could see all of it. Who was performing, who was scared under the performance, which laugh was real and which one was rented, paid to keep the room warm. You saw the whole machine running, and seeing it, you couldn't climb inside it. So you found a wall to lean on, said something about an early start tomorrow, and left. You've probably decided this means something's wrong with you. Antisocial, broken, too much or not enough. I don't think it's any of that. I think you're paying a very specific price. And no one warned you it came bundled with the seeing. I know that room from the inside. I went quiet in places I used to love. And one night, I caught my own face in a mirror at a gathering, that thin, superior little expression, and realized it wasn't depth I was feeling. It was fear in a nicer outfit. There's a real cost to seeing clearly. Robert Greene has written about this pattern in a modern way. The more deeply you understand power, motives, and human nature, the more difficult it becomes to participate in social performances without noticing the game beneath them. But there's a third reason you can't belong, and it isn't about them at all. It's the one you're going to fight me on. So, before we lay out the 3 walls, one thing: subscribe, not for me, for the part of you that's tired of pretending the loneliness is a personality. And like this, if the party I just described was a little too specific. Now the first wall, here's the setup nobody hands you. You spent years assuming that if you could just see people more clearly, read the room, understand what's really going on under what's being said, you'd connect better. More insight, more belonging. It's a reasonable assumption. It's also backwards. Past a certain point, seeing more clearly does the opposite. It isolates you. The people who notice the most tend to be the ones sitting a little outside the warmth, and they usually assume that's a defect. Something's wrong with me. I'm antisocial. I'm broken. I'm too much for people. I've thought every one of those about myself in those exact words. But I don't think you're broken. I think you're running into something structural, something almost nobody names, because half of it is uncomfortable and the other half is unflattering. There are 3 walls between you and belonging. Not 1, 3, and they stack. The first one you'll nod along to. The second one you'll recognize slowly. And the third one, I'll be honest, you're going to resist because the first 2 are about the world. And the third one is about you. It's the one holding the other 2 up. Start with the wall that's easiest to see, the one you'd defend without flinching. Wall 1. A huge amount of human connection runs on shared surfaces. Small talk, gossip, the weather, the game. The mild complaint about traffic everyone agrees on. Little rituals where nobody says anything real. And that's the point. The words aren't the message. The message is, I'm safe, you're safe. We're on the same team. It's warmth. And for most of human history, it worked fine. But once you start seeing through it, you can't unsee it. The small talk stops sounding like warmth and starts sounding like a script. You watch 2 people perform closeness they don't feel, and you can see the exact seams. And here's the cruel part. Knowing it's a script doesn't let you enjoy it anymore. It just makes you the one person at the table who's aware everyone's acting, including you. I used to be good at that stuff. Genuinely liked it. The easy back and forth. The nothing conversations. Then somewhere the volume changed. I'd be mid-sentence in some pleasant exchange and hear myself from the outside saying words designed to fill air, and something in me just went quiet. Not superior, just tired in a way I couldn't explain to anyone still enjoying it. So the first wall is simple. The easy stuff stopped being easy because you can see the machinery now. But that's the visible wall, the one you can almost forgive yourself for. The second one is quieter, and it's not about the small talk. It's about what you now need a conversation to actually do. Wall 2. Once the surface stops satisfying you, your threshold quietly rises. You don't just want contact anymore, you want contact that goes somewhere. This is something Robert Greene repeatedly points toward when he writes about mastering human nature. As your understanding of people's motives, ambitions, and hidden drives deepens, ordinary conversation begins to feel less nourishing. The richer your inner world becomes, the the less satisfying shallow interaction feels. The more you carry inside, the higher the toll on shallow connection, and the fewer people can meet you where it actually costs you something to go. So it isn't that there's no one around. You can be in a full room and starving. It's a mismatch of depth. You're reaching for a conversation with a flaw that drops out. And most people are understandably staying in the shallow end where it's warm. And here's where it gets worse, and where it connects to something. I made a whole video about the empty people modern life manufactures. You're not only lonely because depth is rare. You're lonely because so many people are actively running from their own interior. The depth you're reaching for often has no one home to answer it. Not because they're incapable, but because they've spent years making sure they never have to go in there themselves. So that's wall 2, not too few people willing to be found. But these first 2 walls, I'll be honest, they're almost flattering. They let the loneliness be everyone else's fault. The third wall is the one you'll resist, because it's not about them. It's about what your clarity quietly turned into. Wall 3. Here it is. Somewhere along the way, your clarity curdled into contempt, and that contempt is quietly doing a job for you. Let me say it about myself first, because I earned the right the hard way. That mirror I mentioned, the thin, superior look on my own face at a party, the feeling that I was too deep to enjoy it. I finally asked what that expression was actually for, and the answer wasn't flattering. Here's the job it does. When you leave the room at 9, there's the tiredness, but underneath it, isn't there a small warm hit of, I'm not like them? A sense of standing a little above it all. That feeling turns a loss into a win. Loneliness feels like failure. Superiority feels like achievement. So the mind quietly swaps one for the other, and you get to walk out feeling chosen instead of left out. But look at what it's covering. I'm too perceptive for these shallow people is a much softer thing to believe than the truth underneath it, that you're afraid. Afraid of being ordinary. Afraid that if you dropped the depth and just tried plainly to be liked, you might find out you're not that special, or get rejected anyway with no armor on. Too deep to belong is so much more comfortable than, I'm scared to be seen without my depth. I know, because I hid in the first sentence for years. That's the wall that holds up the other 2. The high threshold, the contempt for the shallow end, they keep everyone at a distance. Where they can't get close enough to actually reject you, Robert Greene's work on power and human nature points to the same trap in modern language. The greatest obstacle is rarely other people. It is the ego's hidden need to protect itself by turning vulnerability into superiority. The insight is real, but so is the danger of letting that insight harden into isolation. If you let that happen, your ability to read people slowly becomes a prison instead of a strength. So if seeing clearly isolates you and then tempts you to feel superior about it, why is that second part so brutally hard to put down? Because you genuinely can't tell from the inside which part is real. Robert Greene's work on human nature offers a modern version of this same dilemma. The closer people get to one another, the more their ambitions, insecurities, and hidden motives begin to collide. Pull too close and conflict appears. Stay too far away and loneliness takes over. The challenge is finding the distance, where connection is possible without losing yourself. That's the trap you're actually in. Some of your distance is real. Genuine seeing, genuine mismatch, the honest cost of a mind that won't switch itself off. And some of it is a coat you put on years ago and forgot you were wearing. Fear dressed as discernment. The cruelty is that from the inside they feel identical. The same shrug leaving the same party can be wisdom or cowardice, and you do not get a label telling you which. The research gestures at this carefully. There's a study suggesting more intelligent people get less life satisfaction from socializing, not more. There's another of high IQ society members where mood and anxiety disorders ran roughly double the national rate. But I have to be straight with you, because this channel dies if I'm not. That second study was a self-selected group, and a large population sample later failed to find the link at all. So it's a real signal, not a settled law. Suggestive, not an excuse. So the way out was never going to be, "Find your tribe." That's a slogan, and it quietly flatters the exact wall we just found. The real way out is smaller and much more uncomfortable, and it starts by telling the two kinds of distance apart. You separate the two lonelinesses. That's the whole thing. One you accept, the other you put down. The first one is the real distance, the honest price of seeing. Some distance is just the cost of a mind that notices too much, and no amount of connection erases it. Stop fighting that one. Stop treating it as proof you're defective. Robert Greene would argue that heightened awareness always carries a social cost, but it also creates strategic clarity. You can carry it. A little distance is the tax on understanding human nature, and it's payable. But the second loneliness, the armor, the contempt, the quiet, "I'm above this," that one you were never paying. You were hiding behind it. And here's the part that'll sting. Because it's the reversal of everything the wall told you. For a person who sees this much, belonging doesn't come from finding people deep enough to match you. It comes from being willing to be ordinary with a few of them. Say the plain thing instead of the impressive one. Let someone see you when you're not being deep, not being sharp, not narrating the room, just there, a little dull, a little exposed, like everyone else. That's the crack in all three walls at once. Because the small talk, the raised threshold, the superiority, every one of them is a way of staying in the performance, while telling yourself you're above performance. The way out isn't more depth. It's the nerve to drop it, to be comfortable being unremarkable and not reach for the armor. When you feel the exposure, Robert Greene repeatedly points out that true confidence never needs to advertise itself. The people with the greatest inner strength don't rely on appearing exceptional every moment. They can lower their guard because their sense of value no longer depends on protecting an image. Depth that can't be humble isn't wisdom, it's just a lonelier way of performing. So the question stops being how to find your people. It becomes whether you can let a few of them find you with nothing impressive on. So what does that actually look like on an ordinary Friday? It looks almost too small to matter, and it's not a program. It's a test. You're checking whether you can stand to be seen without the depth switched on. Here's one. In your next conversation, when you feel the clever line forming, the observation that would land, the thing that would show them you see more than they do, don't say it. Say the plain thing instead. "I don't know. That scared me too. I've missed this." Watch how naked it feels to be simple on purpose. That nakedness is the whole exercise. Here's another. Be interested instead of interesting. For one conversation, drop the quiet project of being the most perceptive person in the room and just get curious about the person in front of you. Ask the second question, the real one. You'll notice how much of your depth was actually a bid to be admired from a safe distance. And the hardest one, let someone be shallow near you without narrating it in your head. No running commentary. No little internal notes about how surface level they're being. Just let them be a person having a normal moment and stay in it with them, without feeling superior. None of this is a system. Skip the urge to turn it into a routine with a name. That's just the performance coming back in a self-improvement costume. But don't expect it to feel like belonging yet. At first, it mostly feels like withdrawal. Let me be honest about what actually changes. Because it's less cinematic than you'd want. You don't suddenly love parties. You won't become the warm, easy person who lights up a room. The seeing doesn't switch off. You'll still clock the performances, still get tired at 9, still need more quiet than most people understand. Some of the distance stays because some of it was always real. Robert Greene has often emphasized that understanding human nature doesn't make life easier. It makes your perception sharper. What changes is quieter, and it's underneath the loneliness rather than instead of it. The loneliness stops being a monument. It used to be load-bearing, proof of how deep you were, a thing you almost polished. Now it's just a fact you carry, lighter because you're not using it to prove anything anymore. And usually, once the armor's off, it turns out there are 2 or 3 people you can actually be plain with. Not a tribe, not a scene. 2 or 3. That's not a downgrade from the fantasy. The fantasy was part of the wall, and I'll admit the uncomfortable half. When you stop performing depth, you lose the little hit of superiority that used to keep you warm on the way home. That withdrawal is real. For a while, ordinary connection feels like a step down because the ego liked the height. Getting over that is slower than any video makes it sound. So, here's the part that's actually yours, and it's smaller than this whole problem sounded. So I'm not going to give you a plan to make friends. A 7-step plan to belong would just be the performance again, wearing a workbook. 2 questions. That's all I've got for you, and they're the honest ones. First, think back to the last time you felt above a room. The last time you left somewhere feeling a little superior to everyone in it. Sit with it and ask, without letting yourself off the hook. Was that clarity or was that armor? You already know the difference. You've always known. You just prefer the version where it's clarity. Second, name one person. One person you could be plain with. Unclever, no depth on display, and haven't because some part of you would rather be admired at a distance than known up close. You don't have to call them tonight. Just admit they exist and admit why you've kept the glass between you. You don't have to belong everywhere. You were never going to, and honestly, you wouldn't want to. But you could stop using "no one understands me" as the flattering version of a smaller, truer sentence. The one that's harder to say out loud. I'm afraid of what I am without the depth to hide behind. You don't have to fix that tonight. You just have to stop calling it something nobler than it is. So here's the challenge, and it's smaller and harder than building a whole new social life. This week, have one conversation where you say the plain thing instead of the clever one. No performance. No watching yourself from the ceiling. Just say the simple, exposed thing and see who's still there when you're not being impressive. That single conversation will tell you more than this entire video did. And in the comments, do the harder half out loud. Name the room where you last felt above everyone. And be honest about whether that was armor. That sentence costs something to type. That's exactly how you'll know it's the true one and not the flattering one. Reading other people's is its own strange relief. A whole comment section of people admitting the glass together. If this found you, send it to the smartest lonely person you know. The one hiding inside their own depth, calling it a personality. Robert Greene reminds us that the deepest form of power is not looking superior to everyone else, but understanding yourself well enough that you no longer need superiority as protection. You already know which room you're going to think about tonight.